Imagine, just for a second, that you could get your hands on a medical master key, like an ultimate cheat sheet, one that doesn't just list off a few random symptoms, but actually claims to take the absolute overwhelming chaos of human disease and organize it into just 19 distinct logical patterns.
It sounds almost like science fiction, doesn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
we are so accustomed to modern medicine where we literally have tens of thousands of diagnostic codes. The idea of condensing the entirety of human illness into just 19 fundamental mechanisms feels impossible.
It really does. But that is exactly what we're looking at in today's deep dive. We are unpacking a medical text that is thousands of years old. And before we get into the heavy terminology, let's just look at the premise.
Right.
Our mission today is to decode these 19 specific rules of illness. We want to see how this ancient system takes the staggering complexity of a sick human body and, turns it into an elegant, functioning ecosystem.
And to truly appreciate how they did this, we really need to set the scene. The primary source we're looking at, this is chapter 74 of the Suin within the Huangdinai Sheng, or the Yellow Emperor's Inner Canon.
The inner canon, yeah. That's a massive text.
It is. And this specific chapter is framed as a dialogue between the legendary Yellow Emperor and his chief physician, a man named Kibo. And the emperor is incredibly frustrated.
Well, he's the emperor. He wants results, and he wants them yesterday.
Exactly. To put it in his terms, he basically tells Kibo that he has entrusted the health of his people to his physicians, but they are failing to get perfect results.
Right.
He demands a system where healing is as immediate and undeniable as striking a drum or removing a splinter from skin. He wants absolute binary mastery over illness.
Removing a splinter. I love that image so much. It's so binary. Like the splinter is in, it hurts. You pull it out, the relief is instant.
Immediate, yeah.
He wants all of internal medicine to work with that same mechanical clarity.
And Kibo's response to that demand, it really lays the foundation for everything we are about to discuss today. He tells the emperor that a physician must carefully examine the disease mechanism without failing to follow the appropriate key patterns.
Okay.
He outlines a core philosophy. For excess, you purge. For deficiency, you tonify. You have to find the root mechanism.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second. Because purge makes sense, right? You're getting rid of something bad. But tonify, like are we talking about toning a muscle? What does that actually mean in this medical context?
That is a crucial distinction. In this ancient framework, to tonify means to actively nourish, build up, or supplement something that the body is lacking.
Oh, okay.
So if you're exhausted, pale, weak, you have a deficiency. You do not need a detox or a purge. That would just make you weaker.
That makes sense. You'd completely crash.
Exactly. You need to tonify your energy and blood reserves to rebuild your strength.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. So, memorizing 19 different ancient medical mechanisms could still get incredibly overwhelming for anyone.
Oh, absolutely.
But our source material gives us this brilliant mnemonic device to group them so they're easier to remember. It goes, this is a quote, 5 Zhang, upper and lower, wind, cold, damp, 5 fire, 4 heat.
It's a very practical, almost geographical way to break down the human body, starting with the inner ecosystem, which is the 5 Zhang organs.
Let's start right there. But before we dive into the very first organ, we need to clarify a term. What exactly is a Zhang organ?
So, in traditional Chinese medicine, organs are divided into categories. The Zhang organs are the solid core organs. Think of the liver, the heart, the spleen, the lungs, and the kidneys.
Okay, the solid ones.
Right. Their job is to manufacture and store the body's vital essences and fluids. This is in contrast to the hollow organs like the stomach or intestines, which basically just receive and pass things through.
Okay, so we're dealing with the core manufacturing centers, and the text starts with the liver. It says, all wind, trembling, shaking, and dizziness belong to the liver. Now, when I read that, my mind immediately tries to map it onto the natural world. If we think of the liver as a part of nature, is this like a tree in a storm? The wind is blowing, which shakes the branches, and in our bodies, the branches would be our limbs causing tremors.
What's fascinating here is how perfectly your analogy maps onto the actual clinical reality. Spot on.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The ancient physicians viewed the liver as the wood element. It literally is the tree. When internal wind stirs up in the body, the outermost branches, so our hands, our legs, our head, they start to shake.
So it's not literal wind blowing through my veins. It's a metaphor for erratic, uncontrolled movement.
Precisely. And in modern clinical terms, this maps beautifully to conditions like Parkinson's disease, severe vertigo, or even an acute stroke.
Oh, okay.
When a patient comes in with dizziness or uncontrollably trembling limbs, this ancient framework says, don't just look at the hand, look at the liver.
Look at the root of the tree.
Exactly. And the treatment reflects that mechanism. Instead of just giving a muscle relaxant, physicians use specific herbal formulas. For example, there's one called Tian Magu Teng Yin, which is designed to literally extinguish the wind.
Extinguish the wind. I love that.
Yeah, it acts like a heavy blanket calming the storm, anchoring that erratic energy back down to the roots of the tree.
It's wild how a metaphor of a shaking tree translates directly to a treatment for tremors. So if the liver is the wind shaking the branches, what happens when that internal weather turns freezing? Because that brings us to the next Zhang organ, the kidney. The text says all cold disorders characterized by contraction and retraction belong to the kidney.
Let's look at the physics of that for a second. Cold congeals, right? It restricts movement, it turns water to ice.
Yeah, everything seizes up.
Right. So if a patient is suffering from a chronic illness like rheumatoid arthritis, their joints are incredibly stiff. It's agonizing for them to flex or extend their limbs. And, it almost always gets much worse in cold weather.
Because their internal environment is already freezing and the external weather just, amplifies it.
You've hit the nail on the head. This framework views that profound stiffness as a deficiency of the kidney's internal fire. It leads to this congealing cold in the joints.
So the mechanism of treatment isn't just handing them a painkiller to numb the brain.
No, not at all. The goal is to warm the body from the deepest level, the kidney outward. Physicians use warming formulas, like Duhoji Shengtang, that act like a furnace.
Oh, to literally melt the ice.
Exactly. Melting the ice, dispersing that cold, and physically opening up the channels so the joints can move freely again.
Okay, so we have the liver dealing with the chaotic wind and the kidney dealing with the freezing cold. But what about the air we breathe? That brings us to the lung.
Right.
The rule here is all disorders of key stagnation, oppression, and distension belong to the lung.
So think of the lungs as the highest organ in the body. They are the canopy, the umbrella over everything else. They act like a bellows, governing the flow of the vital energy and breath.
Okay, a bellows.
Yeah, and when that bellows fails to expand and contract smoothly, the energy stagnates.
That sounds like a terrifying feeling, like a physical heavyweight sitting on your chest.
It is. Clinically, this is exactly what happens in asthma, or chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, COPD. The energy is trapped in the chest, and it's rebelling upward instead of flowing downward.
So how do they fix a broken bellows?
The physician has to use specific formulas, like Ding Xuan Tang, that restore the bellows. They diffuse the lungs, force that trapped energy downward, and open the airways to relieve the wheezing.
Okay, I can visualize the lungs as a bellows. That makes sense. But the fourth organ is the spleen. And the rule says all dampness, edema, and fullness belong to the spleen.
Yes.
Now that feels like a massive jump to me. How do we go from breathing to dampness and swelling?
Well, we have to stop thinking of the spleen the way a Western surgeon does. In this ancient system, the spleen is basically the body's internal water wheel.
A water wheel.
Yeah, its entire job is to transform the food you eat and transport the fluids around your body.
Oh, so it's the motor moving the river.
Let's take that a step further. What happens when the motor on the water wheel breaks down?
I guess the water just stops moving. It pools where it sits.
Exactly. It accumulates and becomes dampness. Imagine a sluggish river that overflows its banks, turning the surrounding healthy earth into a stagnant, muddy swamp.
Gross. And in a human body, that swamp looks like what? Swollen ankles?
Swollen, heavy legs, profound bloating, or even severe conditions like ascites from liver cirrhosis, where fluid just fills the abdomen.
Oh, wow.
You can't just give them water to drink or tell them to rest. You literally have to drain the swamp.
So they fixed the water wheel.
Right. They use formulas like Shi Pi Yin that specifically repair that water wheel. They strengthen the spleen's motor, act as an internal diuretic to pump out the stagnant water, and essentially dry the earth back out.
Drain the swamp and fix the motor. I really like that analogy. Which leaves us with the last of the 5 Zhang organs, the heart.
The heart.
And the text links the heart to fire. It says all pain, itching, and sores belong to the heart. Now, I have to push back here. I'm completely lost on this one.
Oh, get that. It sounds strange.
Yeah, why on earth would I connect my heart with like an itchy rash on my arm?
It requires a pretty fundamental shift in how we understand the body's cooling systems. In this framework, the heart is the pump that governs the blood, and its nature is fire.
Okay,
Usually that fire is kept in check by a cooling, calming fluid mechanism we call heart yin. But when that cooling system fails or the fire gets too intense, you develop what they call blood heat.
Blood heat. Like a pot of water boiling over on the stove.
Exactly like that. That exuberant heat generates a toxicity in the blood that desperately wants to escape the body. So it pushes outward to the only exit it can find.
The surface of the skin.
Yes. Think of severe agonizing skin conditions characterized by redness, swelling, intense burning pain, and maddening itching.
Oh, like shingles.
Mm.
Or a really severe eczema flare-up. You know how the skin literally feels hot to the touch?
Yes. And this is why treating just the skin surface with a cream so often fails. The fire isn't on the skin. The fire is in the blood, originating from the heart.
So the physician goes to the root mechanism.
Right. They use formulas like Dakchi-san to clear the heart fire, cool the boiling blood, and resolve the toxicity from the inside out. When you turn down the stove, the pot stops boiling over and the skin clears up.
That is a phenomenal way to look at it. Okay, so that covers the first part of our master key, the 5 Zhang organs.
Right.
The next part of the mnemonic is upper and lower, wind, cold, damp. So we're shifting from the internal organs to the physical geography and the literal weather of the body.
The body as an entire landscape. It's a breathtakingly holistic way of viewing anatomy.
Let's start with the geography, the upper. The rule is all flaccidity, dyspnea, which is wheezing and vomiting, belong to the upper. So we're talking about the upper burner.
Yes.
Okay, let's unpack this. What on earth is a burner?
It definitely sounds strange in English. In this system, the torso is divided into 3 burners, or metabolic zones. Think of them as 3 distinct processing furnaces.
Okay, furnaces.
The upper burner is the chest cavity, so the heart and lungs. The middle burner is the stomach and digestive area. And the lower burner encompasses the kidneys, intestines, and pelvic organs.
Okay, so for the upper burner, we are dealing with the chest and stomach. And the rule mentions vomiting and wheezing. Why are these grouped together?
Because of the physics of how things are supposed to flow. Food and breath are supposed to go down.
Right.
When there's a dysfunction in the upper regions, the vital energy, the ki rebels, it goes the wrong way. It surges upward.
Ah, so that's why you get persistent hiccups, violent vomiting, or severe wheezing.
Exactly. The energy is trapped and reversing direction. The mechanical fix is to use heavy descending formulas like Qingzhou Ju Fei Tang to force that rebellious energy back down where it belongs.
And the total opposite happens in the lower burner. The text says, all reversal cold, retention, and diarrhea belong to the lower. So things in the basement of the body are either dangerously blocked up or violently leaking out.
That's the perfect way to put it. The organs in the lower region are failing to store and secure. This is usually caused by a deep internal loss of warmth, a profound deficiency.
The body is literally losing its grip on its own fluids.
Yes. You see this in chronic severe diarrhea, incontinence, or even medical shock. The physician has to use incredibly potent warming formulas like Xini Tang.
To stoke the furnace in the basement.
Right, to restore the body's holding power and stop that dangerous downward leakage.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me. We move from the geography of the upper and lower to the internal weather, wind, cold, and dampness. And the text gives us this incredible way to diagnose a patient's weather just by looking at their bodily fluids.
The diagnostic precision of fluids in this ancient text is unmatched. It really is.
Let's look at the rule for cold. It says, all disorders in which body fluids are clear, limpid, and cold belong to cold.
Right.
Think about seasonal allergies. Your nose is running like a faucet, and the fluid is totally clear and watery. Or you have a cough with thin, clear phlegm. Why does clear fluid equal cold?
Because it hasn't been cooked. Heat thickens things. Heat turns watery batter into a dense cake. Heat turns clear broth into a thick stew.
Oh.
When the body's fluids remain clear, watery, and abundant, it means there's a total lack of internal heat to cook them down.
So you wouldn't give this person something to cool them down. You need to turn up the heat.
Yes, you'd use warming compounds like Jiao Qing Long Tang to stimulate the lungs and literally evaporate those retained watery fluids.
But then you have wind and dampness. The rule for wind is all sudden rigidity and stiffness belong to wind. The word sudden is the key here, right?
Absolutely. Wind in nature is fast, unpredictable, and comes out of nowhere. In the body, internal wind presents as a sudden, violent change.
Like we mentioned earlier, it causes shaking, like Parkinson's.
Right. But severe wind causes the branches to snap rigid. Think of an acute stroke, pediatric convulsions, or tetanus. The body suddenly seizes up.
Wow.
The physician has to rapidly cool the system and extinguish the wind to stop the convulsions.
which is very different from dampness. The rule says all convulsions and neck stiffness belong to dampness. But our source notes that dampness isn't sudden. It's heavy. It's turbid and sticky.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, think of dampness as a thick, heavy mud. The body has highways, meridians, and channels where energy flows.
Okay.
When thick mud blocks the highways in the head, you get a dull, heavy, wrapping headache, like your head is wrapped in a wet towel.
Ugh, the worst kind of headache.
And when that mud settles into the joints and blocks them, you get a stiff neck or a rigid spine. It's hard to bend because the hinges are literally jammed with mud.
So the mechanism of treatment is to use herbs that dry out the mud.
Exactly. They use formulas like Kangpo Shengshi Tang to overcome the dampness, dry things out, and reopen those highways.
So that covers the 5 Zhang organs, the upper and lower geography, and the wind, cold, damp weather. We are already 14 mechanisms into our master key,
Moving right along.
but we still have the last half of our mnemonic. 5 fire, 4 heat.
These represent the most volatile, destructive elements in the human body. And it's worth noting that in this ancient framework, fire and heat are essentially treated as belonging to the same broad category of intense pathogenic warmth.
So fire is basically just heat that has raged out of control.
Exactly.
And they take up almost half the list. 9 out of the 19 mechanisms are just fire and heat. But looking at the list for fire, I have to stop here. There is a massive contradiction.
Oh.
Yeah, a text says, all inability to move, shivering, and loss of mental awareness belong to fire. Wait, shivering? How can chattering teeth and freezing belong to a category called fire?
This raises a really important question, and honestly, it's one of the most brilliant clinical observations in the entire text.
Really?
Yeah, what you're describing is a physiological phenomenon known as constrained internal heat.
Constrained heat. How does that cause shivering?
To understand this, we need to look at 2 opposing forces. You have your upright qi, which is your body's natural immune defense, its vitality.
Right.
And you have the pathogenic qi, which is the invading disease, the intense heat. Imagine a patient in the throes of severe malaria or suffering from a massive systemic infection like a septic fever.
They're usually buried under a pile of blankets, teeth chattering, shivering violently.
On the outside, it looks exactly like cold. But what is actually happening is a vicious, extreme battle deep inside the core of the body between the immune defense and the invader.
Okay, I'm following.
The intense heat is trapped internally. It is so concentrated in the core organs that it prevents the body's natural warmth from reaching the surface of the skin and the limbs.
Wow, so the surface of the skin is freezing, but the core is a raging inferno.
That's a perfect description. It is apparent cold, but true heat. This is where a bad physician makes a fatal error.
Oh, because they'd see the shivering.
Right. If you look at that shivering patient and give them warming, spicy herbs to heat them up, you will add fuel to the inferno. You could literally kill them.
That's terrifying.
The mechanism requires you to use powerful cooling formulas like Bai Hu Tang to vent that constrained heat outward. You have to open the windows and let the fire out so the body's natural temperature can reset.
That is absolutely mind-blowing. The diagnostic trap is right there, and these ancient physicians knew exactly how to spot the fake-out.
They were incredibly observant.
What about the rest of the 5 fires?
They are all extreme destructive states. One rule is all fever with clouded consciousness or convulsions belongs to fire. Think of epidemic meningitis.
The heat is so extreme it cooks the fluids?
Yes, it generates internal wind and disturbs the brain, causing delirium. You need herbs that drastically clear heat and open the sensory orifices to bring the patient back to reality.
The text also mentions all swelling, pain, soreness, and fright belong to fire. So here we're talking about things like acute gout or severe bacterial skin infections like cellulitis.
Right. The localized area is bright red, visibly swollen and excruciatingly painful. Fire toxin is literally flowing into the tissues.
And then there's all rebellious upward movement belongs to fire.
Fire naturally flares upward. When internal fire forces the energy and blood to surge violently to the head, you get the terrifying warning signs of a hypertensive cerebral hemorrhage, a brain bleed, or severe vomiting of blood.
So what do?
You have to drastically drag that fire downward. Physicians use formulas like Shijintang, full of bitter, cold medicinals, to relieve the pressure in the head.
And the final fire rule is entirely behavioral. It says all agitation, mania, and abnormal behavior belong to fire.
We mentioned Heart Yen earlier, that cooling, calming fluid.
Right, the coolant?
When blazing fire consumes that cooling fluid, the fire disturbs the spirit. Clinically, this correlates to the manic phases of bipolar disorder or schizophrenia. You see extreme excitement, aggression, and a total loss of inhibition.
The fire is literally affecting their mind.
Exactly. The mechanical treatment requires formulas like Meng Xiaogan Tan 1 to drain that fire and expel the invisible phlegm that's clouding the mind, restoring clarity.
That covers the 5 fires. Let's look at the 4 heats quickly to finish the original list of 19. The text says heat is responsible for abdominal distension, disorders producing resonant, drum-like sounds, twisting movements with turbid fluids, and sour vomiting with sudden forceful diarrhea.
All 4 of these point to severe accumulation and blockage in the digestive tract. Imagine an acute intestinal obstruction.
Like nothing is moving.
Nothing. The abdomen is distended so tightly it sounds like a drum when you tap it. It's hard, it's painful, and it's accompanied by severe constipation.
Yikes.
Extreme heat is binding with dry stool in the intestines, stopping everything. It's an absolute medical emergency.
It sounds like a literal pressure cooker inside the gut.
That is the exact mechanism. And you can't just soothe it with temple teas, you have to violently break the blockage.
Break the blockage.
Yes. Physicians use aggressive, strong purgative formulas, like the Zheng Tang, to aggressively purge the heat, break up the dried stool, and flush the pressure cooker out.
Wow. Okay. We did it. We unlocked all 19 pathomechanisms of the Yellow Emperor. But, science is never really finished, is it? So, what does this all mean? Did the Yellow Emperor miss something?
You did, actually. Or rather, as clinical experience expanded over the centuries, later generations of physicians realized the framework needed an update.
How much later are we talking?
Hundreds of years later, during the Jin dynasty, a famous physician named Lu Wansu noticed a glaring gap. The original text didn't have a specific mechanism for dryness.
So he just appended the ancient master key.
He did. Based on decades of clinical observation, he proposed a 20th rule. All roughness, withering, drying, hardness, cracking, and peeling pertain to dryness.
Cracking and peeling, that sounds incredibly uncomfortable, like living in a desert.
It is a desert. If we look at modern conditions, think of autoimmune disorders like Sjogren's syndrome, where the body's moisture-producing glands are attacked. It leads to chronically dry eyes and a mouth so dry you can barely swallow.
Or severe psoriasis with cracked, peeling, bleeding skin.
Exactly. Or even chronic habitual constipation, simply because the large intestine is just too dry to move anything along.
So it's a profound drought in the internal ecosystem.
Yes, and you can't treat a drought by just moving energy around or clearing out heat. You have to generate rain.
Generate rain, I love that.
You have to nourish the internal fluids. You use formulas like Zheng Tang to deeply moisten the organs and bring water back to the cracked earth.
The fact that Lu Wansu could add this 20th mechanism proves that this ancient framework wasn't just rigid dogma. It was, and still is, a living, adaptable science based on observing nature. That brings us to the ultimate takeaway here. We've gone through 20 rules that categorize everything from a runny nose to schizophrenia, from a shaking hand to an acute stroke. The text wraps all of this up with a final set of instructions for the physician.
Yes, the ancient text concludes by demanding that you must carefully observe the mechanism, investigate what is present and what is absent,
Right.
examine the excess and the deficiency, understand the 5 victories, which is how all these natural elements interact, feed, and check each other. And ultimately, your single goal is to regulate the body's energy and blood to restore harmonious flow.
It's such a powerful reminder for you listening to this deep dive right now. We get so incredibly used to thinking of our bodies as just machines with isolated parts that break down.
Right, like a car.
Exactly. A headache is just a headache. A stomach issue is just a stomach issue. Take a pill to silence the alarm. But this ancient master key forces us to look at the human body as an interconnected system of climates and ecosystems. Its geography, its weather.
It demands that we look for the root cause, the origin of the weather pattern, rather than just treating the raindrop.
Treating the raindrop, yeah.
Which leaves us with a final thought for you to ponder today. If these ancient physicians could observe the natural world and condense the vast, terrifying complexity of all human illness into just 19 or 20 fundamental patterns of nature.
How might we use this exact same framework to diagnose the modern world?
Exactly. Think about the modern epidemics we face today that they didn't have words for back then. The exhaustion of digital burnout, the crushing weight of chronic stress, the constant buzzing overstimulation of modern life.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
If you had to diagnose your own life using this ancient master key, What weather pattern is dominating your life right now?
Wow.
Are you trapped in constrained heat boiling under the surface? Are you experiencing a massive drought of inspiration and energy? What is your root mechanism?
That is a question worth asking, because once you understand your internal weather, you can finally learn how to change the climate.